immediately some changes, and certainly in a short-term period of time, and consequently we could possibly save at least a big part of what has been called, not by us, but before us, a lost generation. But looking at some of them, I would say, well, the funny thing is we talk about Katimavik being suppressed by the government. 2 weeks before this report was tabled, and one of the recommendations of the committee was exactly that, the opposite. All these senators, liberals and conservatives, after a long tour of the country, after meeting hundreds of young people, discussing with and hearing about the different Canadian national program we may have, not very many, Katimavik certainly impressed them, because collectively, unanimously, we said in our recommendation, Katimavik or a similar program should be offered to as many young people that would require it or want to join in a program like that. Could have been 30,000, could have been more. So that was one of the recommendations. But another recommendation in the little time we may have together that struck me as probably the most important one is the one that suggests that some kind of committees be formed, but not committees to study. We have a lot of studies about all these problems. What we need is action. So we suggested the name, I think it's, I don't know exactly in English what it is, but it's, I think it's...
Youth Action Council?
Youth Action Committee or something like that. Well, I will describe it and whatever the name may be. We were imagining that if there was a natural catastrophe in this country, let's say an earthquake or a flood or something, and that a lot of people, children and people would be without a roof and without water and food or whatever, you know, a big natural catastrophe as there are happening, as they happen once in a while and too often. What would be the reaction of Canadians? They would react immediately, and the area where the catastrophe would be more evident would see there the people of the community, I suppose some people from City Hall and the church leaders and the union leaders and the leaders of the community, and some people that were not supposed to be leader up to that point would become leader and would take charge of the problem and say, we'll save the children, we'll find the food, we'll organize shelters, whatever. And nobody would rush to Ottawa to get some money there, or to the provincial government for that matter. They would do things right there, and they would probably save as many people as possibly could be saved. So it means that the point is that we should, as a nation, consider the problem of our unemployed youth as if they were the result of some kind of natural catastrophe. And then we say in the report, then let's react accordingly and start these emergency type of committee locally and bring the leader of the community together with an equal number of young people, some of them being unemployed, naturally they have to be there, but some of them being employed and some of them being students possibly. And this local committee would say, let's look at the situation. How many unemployed youth do we have in this community? How many jobs are there possibly for them? Don't wait for the employment office or whatever. Let's do it ourselves. Let's forget about the bureaucracy and solve this urgent problem. And then if we have, let's say in a small committee, we have 25 unemployed young persons. Why is it? And then, you know, not just studying, talking with these young people, then they would realize that maybe 10–15% of them don't know how to write or read, because it does exist in our very highly civilized country and very rich country. There's about 10% of the young people in that age group that don't even know how to write or read. What kind of job can they get? I mean, there is certainly no hope for them. So then the committee would say, well, that's easy to solve. We have 10 of them, 15 of them that don't know how to write and read. Well, we'll solve that problem first for them. Then they would find volunteers in the community people that would be glad to take one young person and say, well, that's my job, that's my contribution. This boy or this girl will learn to write and read. I'm taking charge of that. That doesn't cost anything to anybody. And then say, well, if there is not enough job in the community, well, there's a way of saying maybe we can create jobs. What about starting a cooperatives? What about at the same time creating a few jobs, let's say a cooperative store or a restaurant for young people or whatever. But that will be some kind of laboratory at the same time to teach young people to create a little enterprise. Because one of the ways to create jobs, which is a strange word to me, is to give the skill to young people to start their own enterprise. And that could be done locally. You know, you don't need to start a national program for that. And there is about, I don't know, maybe a dozen little ideas that are given to this local emergency committee for youth. So this is, but the main idea behind it, it's let's do it, let's stop talking about it, and let's sit down at the community level and say this is our problem and we'll solve it. Doesn't mean that provincial money could not come at a certain point, or federal grants of some sort, you know, to help this little enterprise to start, you know, seed money of some sort. But the first thing is to have the will at the base, that every Canadian citizen would say, what can I do to solve this problem? Maybe it is for one person to teach a young person how to write, how to read, as an example I gave. Perhaps it's for a businessman or a former businessman that is retired to say, well, I'll be the consultant for free to this young enterprise that is started in my community. I know a bit about business. I was a successful businessman. I'll do this now. And everybody in the community can find something to do. And if there was this popular will, this common will of solving the problem, then the political will finally come, and then we would solve the whole thing, because it's not impossible. It's not a question of money. People say, well, he's talking of programs, that's costly. Nothing is costly in what is suggested or recommended in the Senate committee. And on top of that, we are not poor people. We are not a third world country, you know, on the verge of bankruptcy. We are probably the 7th or 8th richest country on earth. But some politicians are talking of the deficit from morning to night. But the same people, they do find money according to their own priority. When they want to bail out some bankrupt banks somewhere, not too far away, they find 100 billion overnight. They don't talk of the deficit that day. When they decide to change the color of the uniforms of the soldier in this country, I didn't ask them to do that. I don't know if anybody asked them. Well, they decided that was in their priority. They found 55 million overnight. It's not a question of money, a question of priority. What do you want to do?
Senator, we only have 1 minute left. I want to ask you one brief question. From here, after the book, what do you plan to do?
I don't know, because one thing sure, I never plan, you know, to do things. I'm not like that. I try to decide and do. For example, my fast was decided 3 days before. I never decide long in advance. What will I be able to do in September, in October, to try to promote the issues of youth? I don't know, but I hope that there will be some ideas outside of a fast that will come to me.
I'd like to thank the Senator for coming here today and talking about his book, 21 Days, One Man's Fight for Canada's Youth. I also like to thank Telecable for providing the facilities and the time to put on this program. And if anyone wants a copy of this book, I understand they're in all the bookstores in Saskatoon. And for a copy of the Senate Task Force Report on Youth, you can call the Students' Union. If you have any questions for Senator Hébert, he'd be pleased to answer them. All you have to do is write Ottawa, care of the Senate. Thank you very much for being with us today. Goodbye.